Welcome to Slop Kings, the crowning of George R.R. Martin. I'm David.
I'm Gabe, George's top guy.
And we're joined by a friend of the pod, cover guy on the pod, Jack.
Fellow prequel patriot.
Did Dave Green cheat on his wife? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was in a hotel with a flooded floor, just screaming, walking in circles. I'm pretty sure that was him. Same guy.
Yes.
Yeah, this is after he murdered a Canadian in the parking lot of Tim Hortons. You know this.
Yeah, but this is part one of our Norman invasion. We have a Jack Norman interview about his excellent book that we just covered. Just only 2 months ago. Wow, the time flies. What is it? Not come to stay. What was the name of the actual book proper?
Sleep Capricorn.
Sleep Capricorn. Thank you. Sleep Capricorn.
Fake Norman fan. What a poser.
I'm holding too many Germ facts in my head. I can't relate to people I'm speaking to anymore. So that's coming up. But Jack had a really great Substack essay. I'm going to link that below if people like to read that. We'll reference it. We'll summarize it later. But I strongly recommend Jack, who your Substack is it just Thingle or
Thingle. Yep. Substack.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Strongly recommend checking out. And yeah, in our Slop series, we are trying to cover some more of the heavy hitters, and today George R.R. Martin. And I guess as a sub theme of that, we're thinking through what is the obligation of an author. Old Georgie boy is infamous for not delivering on his books, or on the later entries in his books. But I guess before we dive into some of these more specific topics, I was curious, your guys. What is your experience with George R.R. Martin, and particularly you, Jack? I'm curious because the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you here is when you interact with people online over several years, as you and I have, you notice certain ticks in their interest. You're like, oh, this person has a fascination with this topic. Like hypothetically, Gabe and I, one might say we're interested in Tim Kaine and Todd Howard. I guess you could reasonably come to that conclusion. I noticed you have a recurring interest in George that fascinates me.
Yeah, the way you put it is so true. The very same way that you guys fixate on Kaine, I have a strange relationship with George. And what did you say, Gabe? Once you said that you used to fall asleep listening to Brandon Sanderson writing tutorials. Did you?
Yes.
Is that true, Gabe? Did I imagine that? No.
That's absolutely 100% true.
Yeah. I feel I just have that kind of what do you call it? The meta friendship? I know they call it something.
Parasocial relationship.
I had that parasocial relationship with Martin. And as well, when I was very young, I used to listen to all of his writing advice columns and videos on YouTube and stuff. And so I just think of him as like an old friend at this point.
And did you read him first or listen to him?
Yeah,
first?
I think I definitely read all of his series first.
Oh, really? Have you read all 30 volumes of Wild Cards?
That's probably the most impossible endeavor. Probably the worst thing ever.
How about you, Gabe?
I read the books as a young lad. All of them once, never twice. I strongly remember liking Feast of Crows. For some reason, the most scenes stick out in my head is Feast of fucking Crows, which all
definitely.
the fans hated. Even though there's great character moments in there. Everyone just wants more Tyrion slop. But the Jamie... Because the thing is, Germ is not a bad writer. Like, his prose, especially famously during dinner scenes, is quite good. His character writing is excellent. He's objectively not a bad writer. And I think there's a meme of Germ that does not really reflect the reality of Germ.
She shit herself repeatedly on the whatever it was. What's that line? Like she wet the side of the road or whatever about
the more she drank, the more she drank, the more she shat.
The more she shat.
Which is I always thought that was a great passage. It's just a candid description of dysentery. It never to me stood out as anything else.
It's just because it's poo-poo, honestly. Yeah. It's like, this is lowbrow. You're talking about pooping.
Listen, if Papa Cormac wrote that, he's like, the more the water flowed through your veins.
Exactly.
The more the fecal matter splattered on the hot red stones in the sun. The judge towering form lectured as a giant brown log.
He could write about the judge taking a shit. People would think it was the most amazing thing ever.
Well, there was the piss scene in Blood Meridian, right? Where they pissed to make gunpowder?
Did you have anything else on your Germ experience, Gabe?
Other than that, yes, I did watch a show. Yes, I have the normie take. First 4 seasons were great, and from episode 5 onward, you could tell the dialogue just radically changed. Like you instantly, as soon as Tyrion opened your mouth, there's something really weird. Everything is
Yeah.
stilted down,
Mhm.
and the thing is, more the showrunners. The show has completely warped the perception of the books. And I
Mhm.
think that's gone to his head a lot. I think there's a reason why he is so eager for this latest adaptation of his Hedge Knight short stories in particular. Is because he wants something that's completely faithful to the books. Because he knows his legacy is with the with the show, not the books. I think he's accepted that. I think many ways. I think he knows the Hedge Knight will be his final word on this particular series.
I think he has schemes beyond that, to be honest. But let me just give mine, because I think it's super interesting. The Game of Thrones really was the cultural phenomenon of the 2010s. It was the Star Wars of the 2010s. I remember there was pop-up bars after the show was out in a city near me, and it was probably like the most unified, most discussed piece, and it pretty much at that whole point. But in my own experience was probably similar to yours, you guys. I in high school I had some friends. We read fantasy books. We'd swap them, Wheel of Time and other stuff. I think we've talked about before. And then at a certain point, it's like, all right, where's the cool stuff? Where's the mature stuff? And you come across the Game of Thrones. We read it. This is before the show. True hipsters remember being there before the rest of the kids came, and loved it. Read all of it, and all that was out at that point. There was only one more book that would come out before we ran out, which was Dance with Dragons. Unfortunately, the shittiest one in my opinion. And then the show came out, and I remember the hype for the show, and then it came out, and it went beyond any expectation I had for its popularity. And I probably watched the first season, and I just slowly lost interest increasingly after that. And then obviously, I to be honest, I wasn't even watching it around season 4 or 5. I just remember the torture porn, because my fiance at the time, now wife, was watching it. She kept up more than I did. I just remember the ball cutting off, all the what's his name, Theon, all the Theon stuff. It just felt like they just hyper fixated
Horrible.
on that beyond the books
Definitely.
ever did, insanely. And this is just not my cup of tea.
He was like wobbling around a meat sausage. That was,
Yeah.
I was like, what? And I think the book even very tastefully sort of just references that he doesn't have a dick anymore, or even suggests that
one comment.
Yeah.
Sir, I don't have, and like that's it. That's the only reference.
Yeah.
The other thing, I just want to get this in before I forget. George R. R. Martin has an obsession with the phrase "fingers like sausages." If you ever read any books from him, you will see. I always beat him on this. It's like 12 times a book he says "fingers like sausages," and he kind of is a big guy eating. But and then like it sounds like with you guys, I read them all once. I really enjoyed it. I was looking for the next one, and then just like many people, it just never came. There was never a conclusion to this story that ended on some really cool cliffhangers. Is Jon Snow dead? Did he get stabbed to death? That's it? Or is he some kind of ghost guy? All these crazy theories. What's happened to Daenerys and the Civil War happening there. And George, when the world needed him most, just fucked off and made HBO premium content and left us in the dust. And I don't know what you guys want to tackle first. Is George a slop king, or does George owe us a fucking book? Was it 7 or 8? Whatever the next book is. Does he fucking owe us the next book?
Are the shows, all of them, the original series, the derivatives, the House of the Dragon, are they slop, or are they good television shows?
We should that's a good point. We should categorize that first. So like, what is George's career? Because I took a couple quick notes on this. So George R. R. Martin was born, I think it was 1949 or 58 or something like that. He was a teenager in the 1960s, and he started out writing as a teenager for fanzines for comics. Maybe it's relevant later. He would just write short stories about his own unique superheroes, and he would send them into these zines at the time. And and people liked it. He got some positive feedback. He's like, oh, wow, I guess I'm good at this. I'll really get into it. He goes into journalism school later. He starts really writing seriously. In the 1970s, he publishes his first novel, which no one's read. It actually looked kind of cool. I read the summary. It was like a doomed planet sci-fi setting. Wins a lot of awards, writes quite a bit for like the next 20 something years. And then he really hits it big with Game of Thrones I think it was like early 90s. They started coming out. And then Game of Thrones, the show, for context, as I mentioned, it was the 2010s The Thing, ran from 2011 to 2019. Following this, House of Dragon ran from 2022 to present. And then as of, I think, 2 weeks ago or so, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, based on a novella series he has been coming out and is going to be coming out for the next couple months.
And prior to the Game of Thrones, the first novel, he worked in television. He was a television writer for quite a long time.
Yeah, showrunner for Beauty and the Beast with Ron Perlman.
And he wrote on the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm. You were a couple episodes of Twilight Zone. Yeah, so he knew Hollywood in and out. There was auctionings when Clash of Kings, not the third story, Storm of Swords came out. That was his big hit. The first two books did relatively well. It was a third book. Was it Classic Kings or Storm of Swords? I can't remember what the third title was, but that's when it blew up. Storm of Swords. That's when it really blew up. That's when he started Sander Lanching, to use the parlance of our particular lord of this particular fief of our particular fief in fandom, Brandon Sanderson. That's when he payoff after payoff, and he wrote that very quickly. And I think people forget that Martin
George
R. R. Martin Gurm is a pulp fiend. He is a pulp author. And so while he's doing that, he's writing 100 different sci-fi short stories about vampires in Louisiana on a steamboat. And he is a pulp author first. He's much like I think in many ways he doesn't want to be stuck. He said this in interviews all the times. I have an idea for a sci-fi novel. I want to write more wild card stories, which is based on a tabletop campaign him and his friends did. And they turned it to short stories for a quick buck, very pulp author style. And I think people forget that, and because it's like expecting him to continue on forever, chained and shackled to the Song of Ice and Fire, is like expecting Heinlein to write nothing but Starship Troopers novels the day he died. Listen, he's too busy doing space libertarian sex on the moon, or wishing he was an autogynephiliac cyborg sexy ninja Russian spy. Pulp authors are inherently fickle creatures, and they want to do multiple things. And he's a pulp author at heart that has been thrusted into a mainstream kind of series author, which is something he's fundamentally is not.
His first goal coming out of college actually was to get a job as a writer at Marvel. Interestingly, to your point, Gabe, about him being more of a pulp guy at heart, and some of his interest. Though I mentioned this, I commented on your article on it, Jack, that I don't feel like Game of Thrones is the most pulpy of pulp. I understand it is genre fiction, but it's interesting, and maybe to Gabe's point, that's why maybe it doesn't hold his interest the same way, particularly with how intricate it is, and he has this interest in starting a new thing.
Yeah, he works there are many themes, I think, that are layered on top of each other, and that he has to carry through each novel. He cannot work through it as fast as he could other things. And so I actually don't think A Song of Ice and Fire is pulp exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I would like to quote your article, actually, Mr. Norman. Since we're doing Norman Invasion, I'm doing my work of bowing down to the founding hadiths. So there's two quotes here that I would like to say. That we understand that authentic stories are settings, worlds, universes, incredible fantasies! ! We ascribe to them carefully curated canons managed by lawyers, fans, volunteers, or only ever the author, as it depends on the intellectual property. I'll fast forward a little bit, and I'll jump ahead and make a claim. A key, a skeleton key, if you will, anchor, or the key to making them is the creator's sincere effort, willingness, and ability to explore their own work. It is, as Gabriel Sinclair, me, puts it, that is something that will eventually form.
The whole reason you pulled this quote.
Either in its sequels and blah, 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 as long as the desire to create remains reasonable, pure, and central, until it produces a Song of Ice Fire, as it resonates with all of us, tricks us into talking in certain ways, figuring that the figments of the world existed at one time or another, had secrets, motives, and could have done things differently. This is this is the second quote. This is what I think is more important here. Peter Dinklage is Tyrion Lannister. This is now incontrovertible. Sean Bean is Eddard Stark. Marky Addy is Robert Baratheon. These characters exist before and after themselves. The most irrelevant thing about them is their description in the Martin novels. They have ascended this way because the setting has remained remarkably authentic. And like Star Wars, The Hobbit, Amazon's Rings of Power, as Dave and Gabriel referenced them, the backlash to its final seasons was the lashing out of an audience confronted by the uncanny valley, which has formed between the carefully resonant world, lavishly depicted via detailed sets, wide shots, world building, and yet now forever married to the source material, and the lazy, character-centric, scene after scene, over-the-shoulder lingering shots of its sad, aging actors in its final season that has resembled little of the world and all of its lack of care. So we talked about authenticity anchors long ago, and I think it was episode 3 of Slop Kings. It was a return of Slop. I think it was episode 3. Authenticity anchors. It was a spin-off of Slop Kings. I can't remember, but basically, what you're discussing here was that what the show did and what the Song of Ice Fire was, it created an illusion of a lived-in universe, and it was a two-way street. The series became a world in many ways much more for the fans. If you notice this fandom, the fans live in the world in many ways. It's almost like Aristotelian's idea of God as a distant, unmoved mover, as a clockmaker. He winds the clock and just leaves it be. Because I even consider this with Tim Kaine, right? 90%, 99% of all the world building and interactions of the Fallout universe, Fallout is my particular, it's my, if you reference your story, Beg Love, Big Freedom, that's my KOTOR too, right? And so my interactions with the Fallout universe, especially more in depth and actually more meaningful, dare I say, than Tim Kaine's interactions with the Fallout universe, as he only made one. So my relationship with that setting, that franchise, is much more intense. And that uncanny valley feeling, I felt that so intensely watching the show, where it's completely severed. Like literally fan films, I feel much more. Well, obviously, because again, it's our cultural tequila, right? It's our cultural melting pot of where I know exactly what's in the head of the guy making this shitty fan film from 2014, right? And this idea of, and the thing is, he caters to that because he wrote the encyclopedia, the maps of Ice and Fire.
Which is my favorite. That's my favorite A Song of Ice and Fire book, is that fucking lore dump encyclopedia. It's so legitimate the way he does it, if you ask me. And
he put effort into it. It's not a shitty tie-in just for the bucks.
No, that's right. He did have help, but a lot of effort. Well, by the way, he had help from fucking Turbo fans, so...
More effort than he needed to.
To your point.
Yet again, he could have said to fans, here's some scrap notes, boom, boom, boom. You let the fans, let them ghostwrite 90% of it. But no, when you read it, you can tell, oh man, he actually wrote this and he actually gave a shit about this. And so he did it for the love of the fans, right? For something that's for us. But there's this weird thing where I think he rightfully resents us. I actually don't think that he's a slop king. A slop king would just do what Bethesda does, right?
You're right. I'm following you. This is the most coherent point I've ever heard you make from start to finish. You're completely right.
Thank you. It's more coherent. The more I reference your work, the more coherent it is to you. Ironic.
Indeed.
But yeah, because Bethesda does this all the time. You could go to the official Fallout wiki, or buy the tie-in tabletops, but they have no influence from the creators themselves. Emil or Todd or the show. There's something that's completely alien to it. It feels very unnatural, and you see these TikTokers, right? Because Fallout's now big on TikTok. You see these influencers trying to twist head over heels to justify the show's retcons. And the idea, it's all the little things, like the dinosaur the wrong direction. It's like, oh, what's such a big deal? Because the dinosaur is supposed to be one way. It's the story of Boone in that particular game. The reason why the dinosaur needs to face the road is because he's a sniper, because there's a long, intricate plot reason. Well, it doesn't work in the show. You wrote the show. You could write that situation in 100 different ways. There's something a little. It's the effort. It's the effort issue.
Yeah.
Where it completely shatters everything.
I thought so too. Yeah.
It's these sprinklings. There's 101 different sprinklings. Like, look, we use authentic sets. It's a real set. It's a real item.
Exactly. Because it is so like the sets are so like they've spent so much time trying to recreate these the aesthetics of the new video games like painstakingly, and yet it's all for nothing because it feels empty. It feels totally devoid of the
Yeah,
spirit of the thing.
and every time someone opens their, there's this very famous Italian singer. He tried to spoof of English pop music. So he did not sing in English. He sang in a he made up a bunch of gibberish that sounded vaguely English, and the Italians actually thought it was English. You can look it on YouTube. It's very interesting. So he sang this complete gibberish, right? But it sounded like vaguely English words. And it was a number 1 pop hit in Italy. And you get as a follow-up fan, that's how you feel. You feel like this is it sounds and the consonants and the words and the vowels are somewhat familiar, but still completely utter gibberish. And the Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire fans haven't suffered like that yet, right? Other than the last 4 seasons of the show,
I
right?
mean, that's pretty significant.
It is. It's watching a man with Alzheimer's slowly forget how to speak. Right, for the first 4 seasons, perfect, and you see your old man slowly just learn to lose his language and his
But then
memories.
he did it again. Every people love House of Dragon. I don't know what the verdict is on Knight of Westeros.
Season 1 was good, and season 1 was good, but then the showrunner fucked him over yet again. As
The more that George is involved, the better it is, and it plays out exactly that way. It seems whether with the presence of George as a producer and writing certain episodes throughout the series, as he often did and stopped doing in the later seasons, or of course where the primary series lost the source material to work with.
Yeah,
when
and
George is not present, it all falls apart. And he was incredible. I happen to think this new one, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, is actually really, really good. Once again, it's totally authentic.
He is very involved in this one, from what I understand.
He is.
He has chained a shock collar to shoulders balls. He said this.
He has. He has. Yeah. And the writer, the showrunner of this show, continues to proclaim exactly how he's obeying George at every turn because of the public fallout he had with that other guy.
Yeah, dude, he literally Gurm just don't give a fuck. He said, like, this House of Dragon guy, season 1 was great. He listened to me. Season 2, he says, "Oh, just send it to my intern. I'll get back to your just send me a note or two." Like, he literally said this, and again, it's a complete detachment, that utter like fuck you. Too. It's the same thing with Tim Kaine, where when he played Fallout 3, he actually sent a post-mortem document to Bethesda. And to this day, Tim does not know if either Todd or Emil has read his thoughts on Fallout 3 or 4. He doesn't want to air them out publicly, but he has aired his critiques to Bethesda about the Fallout series. And that very visceral fuck you is very, very fresh in George's mind and to our minds. And this idea of, I guess you could say, entitlement, because this all goes back to our, heaven forbid, another George Lucas. Yeah, there's this idea of a collective ownership. We have lived, like I said earlier, we have lived in this universe far more personally than the creator God himself here. And there's this idea of you want to please the fans, but you also hate the fans. George has said, I used to really like going to bookstores, and now I can't walk into a bookstore if I'm getting mobbed. Like, he, in many ways, I think if he could, he would take a quarter of the money, time travel back in time, and still just be writing fucking Wild Cards Volume 23 as a pulp author, and just writing a bunch of what's it called, Lovecraft magazines or something. I forgot what the pulp magazines are called. He would still be writing on his blog. I think he just wants to be a normie again. He wants to be like a pulp, like a C tier, Hugo nominated sci-fi author collection. Like, you always see it all the time when you go to Barnes & Noble, the Hugo Award winners and stuff like that. He wants to be that guy again. He wants to be a C tier guy. He is fundamentally C tier. All his references are pulp authors. He went to Oxford, and yet again, it was so he was referencing one of his favorite pulp authors. But then the guy interviewing was like, "Oh, we're running out of time, George. Can we back to A Song of Ice and Fire?" He's been of like his life. It's his life story growing up, and like his father was a shoreman. It's a very personal story. And he's referring to him reading his beautiful pulp authors when he was a kid. And the interviewer interrupts him just so he could shove the fucking Song of Ice Fire Slop questions in before the interview ends. right?
Mhm.
It's that thing of where you're no longer in control of the horse has control of you,
Yeah,
right?
market demand.
The shadow has
This thing you
consumed
created.
him from inside
But
out.
he is in control because he determines whether or not the series is finished. It's totally
Exactly.
up to him, and it's up to his whims basically.
And it's his last act of sovereignty, his last act of self control. When
Yeah.
I die, it
Yes.
ends with me. Fuck you.
Yes.
It's my
Yes.
product. That's him putting his foot down and saying, "That's it."
But I think Dave thinks, for example, because Martin's made so much money that indeed we are owed more from Martin.
That is my main argument. I think so let's reference your article, Jack, where you talk about how you wrote a short story, Bright, and you were playing development novella, and that life got in the way, and you said, you know what, fuck it. And I think you are completely entitled to do that. I've said fuck it with some series, or paused indefinitely. Maybe I'll do something with it later. I think if you come up with something with cultural momentum and with this much, and here's my other thing: if you're going to still write in the universe, if you're going to work on House of Dragon, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I think you have a fiduciary responsibility. You have a obligation to finish, even if it's a mid-ending, to churn out a mid-ending, even if you use ghostwriters, even if you use whatever and you proof it. I think you do owe something at that level of production. I mean, as a self-respecting slop king, at least, or even just as a business. Yeah, I think he does owe something, and I think that actually does. It's why I personally think he is a slop king, but I think he's like a dark slop lord, because the way he views his audience in this purely subservient way, which I understand. It's his world. He's the god. He created it. But I think if you invite that many people in and successfully get that many people, they answer the call. I think he does owe them something.
Actually, you know what he is? He's not a slop king. He's a baker's baron, right? Because a slop, he is a baker. Right?
All right, what does this mean?
A baker, because he loves his. He uses allegory 101 times. Between a gardener and a what's it called, a gardener and an architect.
There are
Architect,
architects
yeah,
and
yeah.
gardeners. Yeah.
Yes, and so there's a difference between a slop king and a baker's baron. A baker will make you wait for the bread, because have you ever made bread like with your hands? I used to bake bread all the time.
Yeah.
My grandfather, like, you would have to make the yeast rise. You had to push it down. You had to put a napkin on, wait 30 minutes. Wait, if it rises, don't let it spill over the bowl. You had to push it down again. You had to put it in the oven. It takes time, and it's a process. It is saying no to the customer. No, the bread is not ready. You must wait for it to rise, and you don't get to control the rise. You can only wait for the bread to rise by itself, and that's the kind of writer he is. While the slop king, Brandon Sanderson, he's like, every week, boom, 30%, exactly. This exact amount of this new book is done. Boom, 10% of this novel. Boom, 5% of the television show is this done. Right? It's exact mechanical. I'm going to get as much. I'm going to release three of my books. I'm going to give them emo e-girl covers and sell them exclusively on the TikTok shop, which is what he did, if y'all remember. He's like, I made a Sanderson starter pack and it's exclusively on the TikTok shop, so all your romantasy readers can really dig into my work.
Like, it's the same world though, dude. That's my hang up. If he was writing romance fiction, if he was writing sci-fi, hard sci-fi, but he's in the same universe, he's milking the same cow. He's just refusing to like finish off the first, I don't know, steak. I don't know how to finish this metaphor. He's sticking he's following where the capital demand is, which is Game of Thrones, the IP, but he's refusing to touch the people that got him there. He's refusing to service the series that got him to where he is. And instead which I find fascinating, he's actually knocking out the park. From what I said, I have not read the Seven Kingdoms novellas, but whatever it's called, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, or Egg and Dunk. I haven't read that, but from what I understand, those are really good, and the series is supposedly better, and he's got that personal touch on it. But there's something, I think that's where he's pivoting to. I think he's pivoting to, it's a broad IP. I have all this stuff, and in 20 years, nobody will care that the one series never finished because it got too complicated. I didn't manage scope, and all they'll care about is, oh, look at all these other cool things. There's a whole Marvel universe of the George R. R. Martin world. So I think that's where his slopification is going. He's going broad instead of deep. And I think you owe the depth, if the depth is what got you there, because people didn't sign up. Nobody joined for Dunk and Egg. The people joined for Game of Thrones Part 4, Part 5, Part 6.
So have we been scammed? Is Martin scamming us?
I think so. It's like a time travel scam. He scammed us all when we started the Log Fantasy series, like so many fantasy series. It's a meme at this point.
I'm sorry. Aren't you a bit of a hypocrite? Because 90% of our fans love our book reviews, but you're too busy doing spin-offs. You're doing the Dunk and
It's
Egg,
true.
which is Kane Corner.
Statistically,
Red
nobody likes
Wall.
the Kane Corner, but statistically, actually, everything gets better views than the book reviews.
Indeed.
But our vast majority of our loyal fan base comes from the book reviews. It comes from the three of us doing things. Yeah, it's no one wants to see your Jack Skeleton ass fingers reviewing Redwall. They want.
You keep calling my Jack Skeleton fingers. Let's see those little gordita munching little thick thumbs you got there.
Like sausages.
Listen, yeah,
Like sausages.
my fingers are George R. Martin-esque. Thank you very much.
Speaking of which, I think he's on Ozempic. He was looking really slim in the latest.
Yeah, he's not fat anymore. Yeah, he looks frail and sad. But it is Ozempic, I believe.
So how do you feel that if some of our most loyal fans, who've been here since the beginning, says, listen, I like y'all for y'all's book reviews. I'm tired of the gaming slop shit.
Well, we never committed. Here's the thing. We never committed. Oh, I'm going to do book reviews forever. That was really never my intention. I'm going to keep doing book reviews. But I never said I'm gonna cover these 12 things. I'm gonna cover this book series until the end. It's just book reviews that we have done and we'll keep doing. But the promise is in the serialization. Again, this is Slop Kings, baby. It's all about the serialization, the repetition of the image of the author. George is repeating himself. He's repeating the IP, the meme of the Seven Kingdoms. He's making this artifice of his own mind into something real in our minds. And then we sort of collectively build an image of it. And then, maybe it clashes with his or whatever, and that causes tension. But he committed and said, this is a story that will have, he literally said like how many books it would have. He gave tentative names to the books. And so at that point, particularly if you have a significant following, which I would say is, if you've made more than $10 million, I would say certainly qualifies, which he has. You owe it to finish the series. You owe it to bring about a conclusion. I understand legally he's not actually obligated.
I think he can't. He could not. If he could, he would. He cannot do it, which is why he doesn't. Which is why I'm like, it's more of a failure.
It's 7 books. Not if he completes Winds of Winter. That's not the completion of the story. Because remember, A Dream of Spring.
Yeah, he's already failed. Yeah, he can't do 2. He can't. No matter what happens, he cannot deliver. It is over in that. As far as the 2 books,
I don't. There's got to be a way. You just kill off characters, or you just drop characters as POVs. There, if you get creative, and again, to my point of earlier, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great. It's just if you're gonna be churning in this IP, I think you owe it.
But the thing is, the social contract when all these people fiending for A Song of Ice and Fire weren't there when the first book was written. This contract was not written. Yeah, I can understand if all these people were were day one, Song of Ice and Fire patriots buying Game of Thrones in 1996, 1998. But he didn't know how big the show would be. He had no idea how big the show would be in season 1. No one did. And so you can't hop onto this weird social contract where you're entitled to, when in reality that wasn't the contract to begin with. At least I don't think so. I can understand that. And also, he got wealthy when he was old. He's fat. And he has no children. Like, he has money and he has the youth to blow it on cocaine or have sex. I don't think he even can see his dick. Like,
he can now, but yeah, he couldn't for a while for sure when the show was running.
Explains a lot.
He has enough money to own a private theater. I think he bought like an independent movie theater in his local town
in Santa Fe. Yeah, he did. Yep.
Yeah, he has all the money in the world and no one to inherit it. and he can buy really delicious food now. And he can buy medicine to prevent that food from killing him.
On Trump RX.
Yeah.
He's loaded. He's even more wealthy now relative.
Yeah, thanks. We can thank the president. Maybe he will complete the Winds of Winter now because of cheaper medication costs, right? But it's exactly this. So at this point, he's an old man. And the thing is, the fans are very brutal. We all know that famous clip of that woman saying, "Well, you're not going to be around any longer. You're going to die soon. So why don't you just hand it to someone else so they can finish it?" And that was a
Why does it exactly? And why? I think that's the worst. Like, if there's anything to be upset about, it's that he doesn't just give it over to Preston Jacobs to finish.
yeah. And the thing is, I think him as a human being is just like, no, this is my work.
Yeah,
My last ownership, everything else has been overwritten. It's been consumed by showrunners. It's consumed by HBO. It's consumed by fans of a simulacrum of my work. The only thing that I can do that's different from the corporate interests, is different from the meme virus, is say no to the slop. It ends with me. It's his last act of true sovereignty, both from HBO and from the hordes of tourist fans.
You guys are treating him like he's a slave to capital, though. He could just say no to HBO. They can bring up their dump truck full of cash for House of Dragon or Night of the Seven Kingdoms. He could literally just say no and say, oh, maybe I'll privately fund a smaller scale show. Maybe I'll just focus on writing for 3 years. He has his own agency in this.
Yeah, that's the agency is saying it ends with me. I think it's his ultimate as a human being. I think he is in many ways a slave to capital. I mean, he's constantly badgered and hounded and pseudo threatened with death threats. Like, hey, you're gonna die soon. Just give it to me. Give it to me. Make my OC canon. Make my fan canon.
Yeah,
I don't think. No, he can't control his desire in that way. He can't say no to HBO.
Yeah, the thing is, I think he loves the series. He does. It is his baby, but fuck, he wants to write a sequel to his 1992 story about vampires fucking on a Mississippi boat, right? And I think it'd be a power move if he wrote in his last book instead of working. You know what? I'm going to write that sequel. I want to write that sequel to that pulp story I wrote in 1974. That'd be my last work, right? Because this series is not even his sixth title or his sixth IP or his eighth story. You know, he's written dozens stories before this. And to have your jackpot written right when you're like not 80 years old already, it's I mean, it was a cruel joke. It is a cruel joke to do this, man. To give him wealth and really nothing to spend it on, and have no vitality to spend it on. And he has not the wisdom, or he's not a particularly wise man. He's not a genius by any means. He's a smart guy that they read a Wikipedia.
What do you base that on? He's not a genius.
No. He wrote a very complex story, riffing off Wikipedia posts, or I guess encyclopedia back when Wikipedia was made up paper and pages on the Wars of the Roses. Made a bunch of historical allusions. He says, I basically just got history, pop history, and cranked it up to 11. He doesn't.
Yeah. Even the new series, they just continually talk about salt beef. They're like, I'm eating salt beef. I'm having salt beef on the road. I'm like, I think they ate other things, man.
Flanderization of dinner in the Middle Ages. Actually, I had a thought on this too. I wanted to share with you guys of, I guess Flanderization kind of related. Tyrion in the very first book, and like the way he progresses in reader's mind, and then subsequently in the plebeian television, quote unquote human watcher's mind. Tyrion, if you remember the first time he shows up, he does like a backflip and he acts like he's like he's a completely different character, essentially. Yeah. He's a completely different character as he is from the later books, much less the TV show where he shows up fully formed as Peter Dinklage, as this witty, essentially George R.R. Martin insert.
Yeah.
I just find it. You go ahead, Gabe.
I was supposed to say Flanderization is much worse with Jamie in the show.
JB?
Jamie, his brother.
Oh, Jamie, yes. Yeah. But that was stood out to me as it was always interesting. I saw it with a sort of a writer's eye as I've gotten older, and I'm sure you could as well, Jack and Gabe. The way you can tell this is not a first draft. You can tell this is a forming thought. It's an evolving thought. It's not a real character. And to your point in your essay, Jack, this is like an intimate creation of the mind of the writer, not it only exists in that one place, and he's just putting it to paper. That's it. That's the story. It's a thing someone put on a paper. It's not real. Get over it. But it evolves. But and I'll quote Hegel without ever reading Hegel. But we had this Hegelian process where we sort of create self-definition or definition of the being of the story by interacting with other people and their awareness of the story. And through this fandom effect, this like Hegelian Evangelion fandom effect, Peter Dinklage becomes the character, and that's the authentic thing, and that's what he's trying to match. And I just find that I found that like a really with see, even I'm saying Peter Dinklage with Tyrion as a character, he kind of is the heart of the series in that way, and what became of it and the memification of it. And he was in reaction memes. He was as this smarmy don't you know you're a middle-aged fool, I'm a person from 2020 or 2016 telling you how you should defend a city. It just is a really illustrative example of the process we're talking about.
He's wholesome Chungus quip man, and while in the books he has a very dark, like he's a fucking full blown. He wants to rape Cersei and kill her in the later books.
Yeah, he's an imp. He's an imp in the books. He's like that. He does the backflip in the first chapter. He's literally an imp. He's a skeevish little acrobatic thing, and then he becomes a waddling quip master. So
he becomes a Marvel wholesome Chungus Marvel character. He's a bastard of a heart of gold.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think with the fandom thing, it's about separation. At this point, the fans have already written several fan treatments or fan versions of the
series.
There's
a really large project for that. Yeah, maybe you know more than I do about that, Jack. I just heard about it.
Preston Jacobs. He puts them on YouTube. He's a
I remember him. Yeah,
kind of a legend. Yeah, he used to be really famous, really popular on TV. Everyone used to tune into his episode reviews of the series. He's for some reason, and this is probably the most disturbing thing about him, is his favorite character is Sweet Robin, the little the really runtish little kid. He's like no one knows Sweet Robin.
Sweet Robin. The name sounds familiar.
That she what's her name? The girl travels with.
He breastfeeds. He's like 13.
Yes.
Oh my god! Him?
Yeah. That's Preston Jacobs' favorite character. Yeah.
Based very.
George would actually agree with that, based on the sex scene in one of the later books.
Yeah, absolutely.
The milk just splurting out to fill his mouth.
Like my take on this, the breast milk is a very key, a very vitalist. But my take on this is, at this point, when he dies, and most likely if the universe where he doesn't release Winds of Winter, or he does,
yes.
Yes, our universe, or he does, right, but doesn't release a Dream of Spring. And so he actually has the balls to say, "Yeah, you know what? Fuck you, I'm burning it. Burn. Actually, when you cremate my body, burn my manuscript with me. That would actually be a Chad move and television alive for all the slop fiends to see."
So petty.
It'd be completely justified, because at this point, you're right. The fans do all the world making. They live in this world when they do. I think, from a Hegelian standpoint, an ending will, if history uses men and discards them as they need, which is an actual Hegel quote, you poser. If it's systemic, I'll take a Marxist view, right, where the train of history goes on without you. If he doesn't finish it, someone else will, unofficially. Yes, it won't have canon slapped onto the cover, but someone else will. Right, and the universe will live on in the minds of the fans. Same thing with me. Like, for me, Fallout is dead at this point. At this point with the show, at this point, it literally is dead to me. Like, for me, the series just ended. Right, but I have my memories. I have the fans that agree with me. I have parts of the fandom that I have, and I have my tabletop campaign that we'll be playing soon, which will have plenty of breast milk to go around. And it's Brahmin milk, mommy, mommy Brahmin milk, and at this point, it's the anarch in the woods. It's Germany is dead. The Germany I grew up in no longer exists. It's been firebombed to hell, and I have the Germany in my soul. I have the Germany in my heart, and I had to do my best to live in that world in my own way. I had to be an anarch openly and spiritually, eternally live in my own universe, live in the forest of my soul. And I think that's what fans have to do. Once either the corporate has killed the series, or once this, even say the author has killed the series, you can have a choice. You can let it go, learn to let it go, and move on with your life, or you can
Mhm.
eternally live in that universe and have the will and the strength, the Nietzschean will, right, to take it over from his ghost and say, "No, it is my. I take complete ownership from you, and I will create it on my own terms." Which is where I've gone with my personal OC franchise. And I,
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way about like Star Wars, for example, and I think that was the first time I remember the public debate about canon, quote unquote, being taken in that direct, because people used to be, as I remember being on the internet my whole life, the notion of canon was so important. You know, canon was always, you know, people would get so up in arms and was also, you know, energetic about what was canon and what wasn't. But then when you see something that is given that official licensed legal canon, such as the Star Wars sequels, and then you kind of have to say to yourself or to your peers, whether it's cope or not, like, no, actually, what's actually real canon is what's actually authentic. What's the authentic part of the media? And I know what that is. It's this, it's that, and it's not what's that anymore. And you know
Mhm.
what's and what's although the and then and everyone would be going through a similar grieving process, because I think Bethesda has said, like, no, actually this television series we're presenting is in the future. It's the furthest, you know, it's the most up to date iteration of Fallout, and the next game will actually be based on events from this show. But so as you say, Gabe, it's dead. It has to be dead for you because you can't accept it.
yeah, it's in many ways you got to treat religiously. You were a religious group, and this is apocrypha. This is
Schism.
heresy. Yeah,
Mm.
it's schism,
Mhm.
right? Or the Orthodox versus the Catholics versus the Mormons, or we're at 101 different flavor of like weird cults out in the West. These are heresies. They live out in their wild. I can't kill them, sadly. So I must recognize, yes, these sadly exist, but my internal cosmos, when the judgment day comes, they will be wiped away while my face stands there for eternity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I feel that way. Yeah, definitely. With that
And,
same sort of passion about these things. Yeah.
yeah, and the well, sadly, the Nietzschean will to power is taken over by the Redditors with Red Letter Media, where they took ownership of the Star Wars franchise. The fans had not a problem saying, "Oh, George didn't really make the Star Wars franchise. It was his wife who wrote the script. It was his wife who edited it, and it was X, Y, and Z author. It was Dave Filoni." Right?
Mhm.
They basically raped George and they ripped it away from him, and fans have completely like revolted, like a Bolshevik revolution. They ripped it away from the glory of Tsar, and this is what we get the Star Wars sequels, right? At this point, and the fans had their glory days, right? With the Star Wars EU, right? The expanded universe, the
Mm,
games,
mm,
KOTOR
mm.
1, KOTOR 2. Yeah, some playful heretics like Chris Avellone subverting expectations of KOTOR 2. But once that degenerates, that personal vanguard happens, then you get the Brezhnev doctrine. Then you get,
Mhm.
Novatroka, and then everything collapses, right? Where it's completely unrecognizable. Yes, the heretics flipped it on its head and took ownership of the means of like fandom production. But once they grow old and die, once it gets usurped by, the oligarchical capitalists, right? You get the new series, right? You
Yeah.
get the Star Wars canon,
It's almost
and
like we don't have a sophisticated enough like lexicon to discuss this stuff because this is a pretty new phenomenon. This kind of thing could even exist, right? Like you need to have social media, you need to have fast reach
Yeah,
for these IPs.
yeah.
The IPs have to reach a certain age, right? And then to have the creative control be able to be bought or wrestled away. So this is a very 26 like 2010 to present problem, and going into the future I see just becoming even more severe.
yeah, the thing is with the '80s, with the 1980s remake of action films or Schwarzenegger films, yeah, the remake is shit. I always have the
Mhm.
originals, and that's it. It's very easy to do. But when something is so vast and operatic as Star Wars franchise, when they say, "Oh, all the EU novels, everything that was published, only a handful are canon," you got Star Wars Outlaws and the Acolyte; these are canon now. You as a Star Wars fan had to say, no, You have to go full Luther. You have to put your theses on the church wall and say, no, my interpretation of the canon is correct. I don't care if it makes me a heretic. And you have to have the courage to say that and do that. And Star Wars franchise, in many ways, they still obsess over it. Instead of letting it die, you have I watch more Star Wars critique of Star Wars on YouTube, the 7-hour analyses of Star Wars Outlaws, the City Ubisoft tie-in game, than actual Star Wars content. I've watched more critique. It becomes so simulacrarized at this point that the critique of Star Wars, as more people watch the critique of Star Wars and the commentary on the Star Wars franchise rather than the actual material itself. And I think at this point you could have your fan fiction, reread the books. You can write your own damn sequels, as many people had back when they don't understand the stupid need to quote unquote rewrite the prequels or re-edit the prequels or 101 fan cuts of the prequels. They had no problem writing new prequels then. I remember that cat guy. He uploaded a 3-part video on my rewrites of Star Wars prequels. He gave to set the guns and bullets. And in the prequel era, they used bullets instead of blasters, and that was considered. Oh, this is so much better than George's work. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but you probably made some points.
Yeah, right. I think you have to have your courage of your convictions. I think you have to have.
Yeah.
And
I think the confidence or the patience, or perhaps both, these things, already you see it with this Star Wars in particular. We happen to be talking about it, but people are experiencing it's running out of energy, it's running out of gas, and the wheels are going to fall off soon. And at that point, when it just becomes a corpse, hopefully, because it may not, then can it be reclaimed after that point?
Yeah. Well, there's a whole breakdown of broad spectrum culture, of water cooler culture. And Game of Thrones, like I mentioned earlier, was that in the 2010s. It was pretty much the last gasp of that kind of thing. And so I do wonder, is that more the future? We have these mainstream slop, and you get some people to buy into it. I saw there was a decent buzz for the latest Game of Thrones thing. There's the new Trek. It seems like it's pretty much dead on arrival on all fronts, and Star Wars similarly is sort of losing steam, like you guys say, not quite as dramatically, but even the most normal, oh hey, had such a game last night guy is just not caring about it anymore. And so I wonder if I just don't know what the frontier is. If we're talking about authenticity, and authenticity, as you put out in your other essay, we've kind of referenced a few times without directly naming, but on our friends, the Unreal Press's Substack, which is really great, along with yours, the Thingle, Jack, yours, the Thingle Substack. That's the other one I try to always catch what they put out, because in that essay, you about authenticity. We had an episode on authenticity anchor points, and you elaborate on some thoughts and really focused on sort of the author putting their blood and sweat in, and that's what comes across on the page or the screen. And in this case, it just seems like corporate entities are having more and more trouble replicating that.
That's right.
Or the corporate structure is so diffuse, they just don't have the courage to name someone to bleed like that. Like, maybe people are working hard, like there is effort, but there's not someone with the singular vision they're going to give enough power to own the series. And I don't know what the future looks like in that way. Like, I'm with you, Gabe. I've watched more critiques of the latest Star Wars than I've watched the latest Star Wars. Or listened or whatever. And same with Star Trek. I've watched zero of the new Trek stuff, but I've watched some, classic, the best of the best, Red Letter Media, shout out, their coverage and some other people's stuff. But that can only go so far, because these series are dying, and the people that love them are literally dying. And so what will we offer the next generation? I mean, is it going to be just is Gurmaverse? Is this the launching pad? Maybe he is the wisest slop king of all, because he's going broad rather than just having one mega series. He's just coming out with more repetitions within the same universe. He's universe maxing. Maybe that's the way, and maybe he'll embrace fan projects at some point, or maybe he doesn't. But it's the fact that fan projects have the ability to thrive that is what makes them survive past 2030.
Well, I think it's interesting, the evolution of ownership, right? Because to throw a bone to our old literary fans who watch us for book reviews for some stupid reason, I would say the story of Franz Kafka, his work, right? Famously, he wrote 90% of his stories privately, and when he was dying, he asked his friend "Hey, listen, I want you to burn all my work." And
Hmm.
people, was he sincere? Was he just being melodramatic? But his friend refused to, and as soon as Kafka died, he had all of his stories published. So you had ownership, sovereignty going from the author to one individual, and that individual making the sole decision to honor his dying wish. We don't know yet. Again, people debate whether or not that wish was sincere or not. And the difference with that is purposely giving away to a conglomerate, either the populist fandom or the capitalist companies, in this case Disney. And I think the problem is handing up to the mass, handing from one individual to another, the Kafka story. The evolution from that, from handing it to one person to another person versus handing it to either to fans or handing it. Star Trek also kind of invented fandom culture. The first big sci-fi conventions were Star Trek conventions. Like you famously, Star Trek fans would actually write scripts and someone send it over to showrunners and they would adapt them sometimes. And the they have Star Trek cruises. There's people still do it from DS9 who go to Star Trek
Hmm.
conventions to this very day, right? But that was very intimate. It was very that was when the nerddom. There was a price to being a nerd. There was a cost to believing in this particular belief structure. Once you plug it into a mass conglomerate where it's supposed to be massively produced and get as many people into the church as possible, where you lower down the price of admissions, you get rid of the edges to more and more and more just bodies come in to the point where you get people are dying. Some of them are not dying quick enough. Mike Skalatsky and the other guy from earlier media. They say this belongs to the fans now, and the conglomerate said yes, and I agree. Disney's like, I agree, and you know what? I think we need even more fans. And it gets diluted. I think, and that's progressive turmeric esque step to sort of like a tumor expanding, is of course with the whole
I think
AI
you meant the
thing.
spice.
No. This is my hatred of food analogies. I love George R. R. Martin, but I'm not doing the food analogy. Right? USC basically AI slop now. We can just make our own. Like each individual person will have their own AI generated sequels done right.
I
You
don't think that's
know,
going to happen though, or is it not going to expand beyond the individual? I just think people overestimate the AI appeal because you just can't connect with people. People want to connect through the media, right? Like look at the Fallout New Vegas universe. Look at the people that are into it. If you could just make individual AI Fallout stuff, it'd only be, in my opinion, it would only be as valuable as its value to other people that you could share with, because humans establish value by other people's value judgments. You look at two toddlers, the toddlers always want the toy the other toddler has, right? Whether it's a shitty toy or the best toy. And it's the same with entertainment art products. I think that process, I think tech bros are vastly overestimating how interested people are in customized individual AI art.
I think you're underestimating just sheer vibes. Oh, I get to have a live action 1970s Mad Max style adaptation. I get to see a
Mm.
black and white version. I get to see Battleship Potemkin, but with people in vault suits. It's like I think underestimating people just going in things for the aesthetic of it's X aesthetic plus Y aesthetic. How neat. Right, and this is right now. It's 5-second clips of right. You'd say like
Oh, the normies on the Marvel sets. That actually does kill my soul when I see the more normies like AI putting themselves on an AI set with like Iron Man or whatever, and then they flash into Jurassic Park. Have you seen
yeah.
those?
Yes, the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. It's like the Joker from Dark Knight Rises, and like all these like you. That's the inevitable end game of fandom culture, right? Where everyone has their own canon, everyone has their own interpretation, which is Bethesda's take. Like I don't want to. Everyone, all fans are entitled to their own ending. None of our endings are canon. Whatever canon your ending choose, that's your choice. And that's when you give it to everyone. It becomes again when everyone's special, no one is. So I think that's the inevitable end game of this kind of culture, of this kind of quote unquote artistry, is just basically subscription service. Have your favorite setting. Waterworld meets Fallout, or Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings crossover. We can AI generate there's this there's this Indian slop on YouTube where philosophers like Plato debates with Friedrich Nietzsche on Christianity and the work-life balance. Right, you see this. These are hour-long videos. These are videos. Like Google, like Plato debates Nietzsche on the work-life balance, or founding fathers react to like pornography culture. I mean, Glenn Beck. You realize Glenn fucking Beck of the Blaze, this conservative boomer, right? He fed an AI all of George Washington's writings, and he AI generated a figure of George Washington, and he had an interview of George Washington on modern day culture. Right? It's a 30-minute video of him talking to a chat bot that's pretending to be George Washington.
Oh, that hurts.
It's humiliating.
It's pure boomer slop, right? It's completed boomer slop, and that's the first step on a 3-hour. You get to hear Friedrich Nietzsche talk to Tony Stark on how to hustle grind set your way to a new job, right? It's what happened to Marcus Aurelius Meditations, right? It's a hustle bro book now. You'll see that, and that'll be happening with AI slop. I think it's a natural endgame of all this, of fandom culture. Through their love, they ended up actually drowning what they love with flowers at the end, and eventually sucking their own cells.
I don't think so. I think they're eating the corn seed with that kind of content. They're eating because fandom culture is. I genuinely think it's generative. People love to shit on fandoms and fan fiction and fan whatever, but it's actually people, like we were talking about earlier, generating original stuff based on the most authentic aspects that everyone hooked onto early. And I mean, that is there is a social angle to that. And there's I understand on social media, quote unquote. By the way, another really great read on Substack, friend of the show, Arthur Powell. He wrote a Rifts of Stone, but now he's Ghost of Arthur Powell on Substack. I'll link that below too. He had a great essay on the quiet death of social media and just how social media has become not social anymore, but it's like this quasi-professional, increasingly professional, just TV essentially, with channels and shows. I won't go into the whole diatribe on that, but it's relevant to this in that if you that kind of content it succeeds there, but I don't think it actually has any lasting power, and I don't think it has a future as these franchises get diluted and they lose that fan base. Because right now they're thriving because again they're in the corn seed. They're booming off of the existing fandom culture, fandom media. But the fandom culture, fandom media cannot survive on that. We're seeing. It's like seeing a fungal infection on something, right? And you're going to see a fungal infection on a big dead tree that was luscious and powerful. You're not going to see it on a scrawny dead thing, and you're not going to grow fungus on fungus. Maybe you can. I don't know. I don't know. Jack, am I making any sense? Am I literally just
no? I
completely
agree. I completely agree. No. I totally agree. But and it's also I was the other day. What did I see? Something. This is on X. I saw someone talking about the strength of the courier as a character from New Vegas, the Fallout New Vegas courier, and the concept of the courier as in the context of the New Vegas video game, and how it has spawned something like thousands of tremendous sort of fan arts of the courier, fan stories, fan understandings of it, and it's because but you wouldn't in the fandom. The way the fandom reacts to the authentic elements of the story, as you say, you need that fandom you need the grotesquely obsessive fandom for these things to correctly resonate. And because then once they do resonate, then you see when the idea is indeed authentic is when it gets repeated a million times. With the fact that you could go into DeviantArt and type in New Vegas Courier and there's 200,000 whatever you want, or you could type in I don't know, something from the recent Fallout TV show and you'd get 2,000 results. You need an obsessive fandom to prove. You need that proof for the pudding.
That's true. I mean, but but the problem is, once that it's right when the star get with stars, they slowly get larger and larger, more and more powerful. but then they have to burst, right? And it's what happens with the Star Trek fandom. Once it becomes full of potential energy of love and devotion, people can recite and write scripts. In episode 3, if you look at Spock's ear, it starts melting because Leonard Nimoy was scratching his ear behind the scenes, and all these things. That potential energy devotion, capitalism and corporatism will eventually leech off of that energy and suck it dry. Once, if Sleep Capricorn was ever so successful, where we get to do a VR interaction, where yeah, dude, I can sit with the main character of Beg Love, Big Freedom, and sit down with him and play KOTOR
The
2.
fish batter stain VR adventure.
yeah. 5 Nights of Fish Batter Stain. Imagine
flip the giant cock up to white.
You could be the vibrator if you wanted to. I'd be the vibrator.
press X to vibrate.
Yeah.
yeah. So a survival simulator. Oh, it's like farming simulator. You had to take care of that. You had to wipe his ass. You had to make sure he doesn't get hit by a car while
So
his chair.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? You get to live in the world. It's a fictional world of Australia, right? You get to go to Porcupine or Paul's Pocket, right? But the thing is, like, Jack obviously did not intend for you to wipe the poor kid's dick. I forget the kid's name, Junior. You're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be an intimate relationship between him and his father. If you're inserted into the scene, you get to self-insert as the son staring into his father, right? And you don't have that intimate sense of isolation. And the devotion is necessary, yes, but you have to realize that in many ways you have to be. There's public devotion, there's private devotion. There's outward explanation of faith and versus inward explanation of faith and devotion, internal, through belief alone, if you will. You don't have to have. I'm being a kind of a Protestant here. It's like, as long as I personally avow that my faith in Jesus Christ, I don't have to be his ostentatious beliefs. I don't have to go to mass every day. I don't have to rely on a priest. I have my own internal faith. And I think that's at some point, once a franchise is getting long in the tooth, once Jack Norman sells out and we're having HBO spin-offs of each of the individual characters in Sleep Capricorn, at some point I will have to realize that despite being a normiac, I will have to personally say goodbye and completely utterly ignore it. It's the Buddhist idea of letting go. Right?
You got to let go. You got to say farewell. That's right. Yeah, and that's the thing, like you said about Tim Kaine, and I think that the truth about George Lucas, as we know, who sold the truth about the creators of these worlds is that they let go much easier than everyone else does. For them, it's just happens to be one thing they did, however monumentous or not, and but fans really, really don't know how to let go.
Right.
Well, the author saw it as a falsehood from the start, right? Like they saw the awkward half-baked idea of it, and then they rebaked it. And so to them it's always imperfect.
Yeah, I think Tim Kaine is the happy ending of this, because he's like, he makes games for fun. Remember that one video he released at 3 a.m.? He was like, I just made this in Unity. It's a rip of a Starfighter, right? It's or some space game or some spaceship shooter, right? He calls them toys. He makes them for fun. And he made a video saying, would I work on Fallout again? And he overall said, you know what? No, I wouldn't work on Fallout again unless it was something special. I was born to be a gamer. I was born a gamer. I was born to play games. The reason why he says I was conceived because my little brother didn't have anyone to play with, my older brother. So I was literally born to be a gamer, to be a player, right? And Tim was like, he is his metaphor of the painting. Like, I made one painting, and it's sold like hotcakes, but I don't have any rights to the painting. And my slave master said, just do the painting again. And he's like, dude, I painted that years ago. I'm making off my own painting. He's like, but you're not making as much as you could be. He's like, well,
you're making Outer Worlds.
But it's his right to make Outer Worlds. It's Gurm's right to make like a Wild Cards 24. And
I agree. Yeah.
And the part of being an artist, being art is making art that sucks, art that is shit, and maybe even supposed to be shit. Right? That's why famously Tim Kaine says he doesn't like the idea of working on sequels. When he left Fallout 1, EA offered him to work on the Wasteland 2, which is another RPG about apocalypses. And he said no. He was offered good money for it. He's like, no, I just worked on an apocalypse game. I want to do something else. And I think it's a Buddhist idea of letting go of desire and just saying that, I'll never touch this franchise again. and that's okay. I made my peace on that in 2004 when we couldn't afford to buy the rights to the damn thing. Tim Kaine is happy. He's in his own life. He's a YouTuber now. He's baking muffins, and he is completely. He refuses to let the shadow of his creation haunt him. He's in the exact opposite position as Gurm at this point. He has let go, while Gurm is haunted, very, very clearly haunted by the Song of Ice and Fire, very clearly haunted by the HBO series.
I do want to move on to final votes. Is George R. R. Martin a slop king? Yes, or affirmative, in the affirmative, or in the negative.
I think because when you think of Sanderson, and maybe Sanderson has integrity, I don't want to say he doesn't, although I'm going to say at this very moment that he doesn't. He's not Sanderson, right? He's not Sanderson. He's not a slop king. If he's a slop king, he's Aragorn, and he's destined to reclaim his throne. You know, he's a lost king, and he's an adventurer and a hero.
Actually, I'm going to take the reins of this question and insert my own canon, my own question for Mr. Norman of the owner of this invasion. I'm curious, after this entire discussion, if Blaze TV or Passage Press were to offer you a deal to make a based miniseries on like Sleep Capricorn, right? And you had a final say, and we all, after all this discussion of memetics and fandoms and all these things and all the trials and tribulations of adaptations, giving your work ownership of your own rights to something else, would you do it, Mr. Norman?
Yeah, quick answer. I would do it, and do you know why I would do it? Because George Martin himself used to say this all the time, and I don't know why he lost this. He used to say the books are the books, and the show is the show, and they're two very different things. And he would counsel fans when they would be upset about one thing or another, and he would tell them always, "You have the books, and the books are mine, and I love the books more than I love the show. The show's the show." So and so I completely agree with that, and so I would let anyone adapt anything I ever did, and tell myself or anyone else who cared, man, it's always going to be pure in the form that I made it from. The rest is just, who cares?
And that's what the thing is. But he clearly did not follow that advice, though.
He lost his way. Yeah.
You could say that, but clearly he's very much not in control of that particular saddle.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would say, honestly, no, he's not a slop king. There's so many more ways you could slopify A Song of Ice and Fire. And the fact that he's so angry, and the fact he puts so much effort in trying to make the shows as accurate to his work as possible, trying over and over and over again to have a show that's 100% book accurate, a slop king would just take that check and run.
Yeah, there's a capital E for effort there still, always, in all the things, because he's a producer on these shows. So I think you're right. Yeah.
So no, he is not a slop king. He is a baker's baron.
Baker's baron. I still do not understand this analogy or whatever this title is.
It's a long, arduous process. Baking is slop. Is you throw a bunch of ingredients, fill a bowl of water, heat it up as quickly as possible. It's just Chipotle. Fill it up quickly as possible so they can shove it in their fucking mouth. While baking takes a long ass fucking time. That's the micro expression of the concept of a baker's baron. A baker's baron bakes on his own damn time. The bread will bake on its own terms, and you have to accept the process of baking. Versus the slop fiend, which is just heat liquid, shove into your mouth as quick as possible.
Yeah, I think I'm actually persuaded too. I was going to argue that he was a dark slop lord of pride because he still he refuses to end the series. But I'm persuaded by your guys' points in our conversation. He doesn't. So he point in favor of his slop lordness. He sticks where the money is. He sticks in the Game of Thrones series primarily. But against that, he does still do the wild card series, who no one gives a fuck about except for him and like the 10 writers. It's like basically Unreal Press or Tales of the Unreal. Unironically, it probably has similar readership, but he dedicates quite a bit of time to that. And he, like you guys say, he does the producer role. He's he wants these works to be authentic. He bows to capital to some extent, but he sweats and bleeds over these. He's become more into the TV world, but he still has that emphasis on quality, which someone like Sanderson, as our sort of our ultimate King of Kings, doesn't, right? He will sacrifice and cut those edges sometimes and just say, hey, it's a product. It's, we're getting it out, while still in his world, he's still keeping it sacred, but he's not sweating over it the same way.
Well, he's learned from Gerber's mistakes because of the Apple TV show. He's apparently he says the deal with Apple TV is like, one, I have to be a showrunner, a straight up showrunner.
Yeah.
And
I have 6 months to it.
And he's trying to have complete sovereignty to the show and have it being the final say on what goes in the show, what goes out. And he's writing the script, I think, for the first season as well.
Yeah.
So he's learned from the mistakes of the following.
But like he's the slop king, and he has a kingly aspect coming into these negotiations. George Martin was nothing more than a hedge knight when he first approached HBO. When he made the agreement, he didn't have the power. Sanderson has accrued all of his power all on his own. So very impressive.
Yeah, he's a Chinese warlord. He's a Manchu. He has power backing himself when he's debating or arguing trade agreements with the Manchus. While and Sanderson is just a lowly, fat eunuch from the Cantonese province. He got lucky by saving the emperor's daughter, so he gets to live in the palace now. But he does not own the palace, and the king can discard him as he wishes at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I would say, as a fan, by the way, I spent money. Speaking of, we spend money watching Game of Thrones. Well, I spent money on Improvidence, by the way, and you've been doing all these sideshows.
Sequel.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
What's going on?
You left it on such a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
You left it on a cliffhanger, motherfucker. Where's my Improvidence 2? Where's my clone redhead GF birthing scene? All right.
And who's going to write the next one if you die? So we need
my
successor.
My son. I've already delivered an elaborate package to him. I honestly do it. I have it all plotted out. I just have to do it after I finish this one. I'm just doing some editing, but it will come. It will come, I promise. Thank you for the encouragement. And if you haven't read it yet, link below in Providence. If you're one of those holdouts, come on, guys.
Going where the money is. He's shilling it still. The obligation.
True Slop King style.
Yeah.
and use promo code Fish Battered Stain so you can get the bundle with Sleep Capricorn from Bonfire Books.
Tonally, completely consistent.
Great idea. Yeah.
And actually, for a final vote, by the way, if voting yes or no for the sake of his dignity, George R. R. Martin personally emails us after this. He gives us the manuscript. He says, Jack, Dave, Gabe, when I die, I want you to throw this into a wood chipper. Now, after all his discussions of respecting him, now, Jack, will you vote yay or nay?
No way. No way. Well, no, it's got to be seen. There's no way. I'm Franz Kafka's best friend. No way.
You wrote an entire essay. You wrote a fucking essay. It's like you're entitled to the continuation.
I completely respect his position, but I respect my own as well. So
Jack's not saying he doesn't have autonomy and ability to make a decision. Jack's just like, I also can make a decision now that you're dead, and I respect my decision more. Anyway, we'll close it off there. Thank you, Jack. Man. Thank you, Gabe. Another stimulating Slop Kings episode. Hey, you know what else? Let's end this on the pledge. Have you shared this with a friend? You're probably in a private group chat that talks about weird things like Slop and Brandon Sanderson and George R. R. Martin. Why don't you post this there? It really would help us out.
And link in the description. I survived the Norman invasion. I didn't become a war bride.
Oh, there you go. But thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Have a good night, guys. Bye.